A man called Steve has answered the call. This is a Citroen Saxo FURIO. FURIO, like furious. Ish. This is a 1.4 Saxo, so although it has the body kit and everything, looks like a VTR, it isn't. It has wheel trims, it has a lower rent interior, and it has a 1.4 litre version of the TU engine. So this is not a sporty car. It might look kind of sporty, but it isn't. It wouldn't even qualify as a warm hatch. It's just a hatch with a body kit. But it has a 1.4 litre engine. Now Dumpit, the 106, has a 1.1 litre engine, a TU1 engine, and that made 70 horsepower. It should have made 60 horsepower. And then recently, in fact, well, it's very recently because I filmed it about an hour ago, a 106 Rally came down. Dumpit 2 came down and did 116, which was even more. That was like 13 horsepower more than the book figure. We have a Saxo with a VTS engine in it. It's a VTR, but it has a VTS engine. My wife owns it. 20 years with a Saxo, did 128 horsepower. So all the Saxos and all the 106s are overproducing on the dyno. It's not that the dyno is overreading, because all the other cars are kind of where they're meant to be, and including my own cars. Apart from Dumpit, all my other cars are kind of like there or thereabouts. But Saxos and 106s seem to be overproducing, and I hadn't, until today, put a 1.4 litre one on there. I had put a 1.4 litre Citroen AX GT. That's not on this list, but that produced 87, supposed to produce 85, but it had done 250,000 miles, so I think that did pretty well. I haven't put an injected 1.4, not special. It's not an XSI, nothing like that. It's just a Billy Basic 1.4 with a book figure of 75 horsepower. Dumpit has a book figure of 60, but produced 70 horsepower. So are you seriously telling me that Dumpit only has 5 horsepower less than this? Or might this have 10 horsepower more than it's supposed to as well? Might this have 85 horsepower? We'll find out. And there's a really strong part of me, little Kitch, little me, wants to know, because I had a FURIO when I was younger and I used to think I was well cool. It looked like a VTS. It might have been a 1.4, but no one knew that. I was the king of the road and a bit of a dick. And I want to know, was I actually driving with 85 horsepower-ish under my right foot? Because if it does produce 85 horsepower, that's only 5 horsepower off the VTR. They're underquoting these cars, I swear it. Or are they? Because all the cars, bar this Saxo here, all the cars that have overquoted so far are Peugeot 106s. Now I know Peugeot 106s and Saxos are the same, they are the same car. They just have different styling, front and back and a different dash, but they are the same car. So is it just 106s? And is there something going on weird with the universe? Or is it Saxos as well? Enough talk, let's find out. Get it? Enough talk. Talk. Like, talk. Yeah. Bit of a funny noise coming from the drive belt area there. The owner assures me he's not worried. Right, let's have a look. Oh no. Maybe it is a 106 thing. I mean, the graph is all squirrely. In fact, it's had a right duck fit here. Look, it started off perfectly and then it flat spotted. Oh wow, that's not gone well. I wonder if it's a bit hot. Might let it cool down for a minute. It has made book figures here, so whether that would have gone like this or not, I don't know. I'm going to let it cool down. I mean, those numbers are actually exactly what they're meant to be, but I'm going to let it cool down and then we'll revisit. Right, I've let it cool down a bit. Let us try again. Well, the owner, Stephen, did say that this car, he wasn't sure if it was running hot or not. Oh, it's improved a bit, okay. So I did let it cool down, and it has started to iron out, so that's good. And it also puts two fingers up to all the people who say that it will just make more and more horsepower the hotter it gets. Yes, people have said that in the comments. 77.7. So it is climbing, but I don't think it's going to climb to 85. I mean, that's got a bit of a kink here and here. But even if you iron those out, it's not losing anything. It just dips and then comes back up. So the torque is 89 pound-foot, 3,000. Gearing 219 at the wheels in fourth. That's a good dollop less than was coming out the 106 Rally just now. It's about 70 pound-foot less. Interesting. I think completely healthy it might be about 80, but it's just too hot at the moment. But I have another thing I'm going to try. So one of the problems, I think, well, it's not a problem, it's not really a problem, one of the issues we're perhaps finding at the moment is the chap's just driven a long way down here. I think he's come from Worcestershire. It's a 1400, which means two things. It means it's got a small radiator, and it also means it doesn't have an oil-water heat exchanger. The VTR, the VTS, the 106 Rally, the 106 XSI, I think the AX GTI even, they have, it's not an oil cooler. It looks like an oil cooler to those who don't know the difference between an oil cooler and a heat exchanger, but it has an oil-water heat exchanger, a unit that the oil filter bolts to. The hell is that noise? It's a unit... yeah, the oil filter canister on some of these cars screws to a block which has a coolant hose going in and a coolant hose going out. It's not an oil cooler. An oil cooler is a little radiator on the front of the car somewhere, or somewhere on the car, that has oil going through it that cools the oil. But it is like a sandwich plate part of that, but coolant goes through it. So when the car is cold, water, the coolant, heats up quicker than the oil. People worry when they're warming a car up about getting the temperature of the coolant up. Well, that's stupid. It's getting the temperature of the oil up, and most cars don't have an oil temperature gauge. So basically the purpose of the heat exchanger is the coolant warms up quicker than the oil, as I say, and when you start the engine cold, the coolant warms up quite quickly because the thermostat's shut. So the coolant gets up to temperature nice and fast, and that helps the oil heat up. Helps the oil get to temperature quicker, which is good for the engine. But when the oil starts to get really hot, it goes way past 100 degrees. Sometimes it can go to 150, 160 degrees. Coolant obviously only really ever hits a maximum of about 95, 100. That's when the coolant starts to reverse the effects. It starts to pull the oil down again. So it's a heat exchanger, funnily enough, which is what it says. And the long story short is this car doesn't have one. So that oil temperature at the moment is probably quite hot, and I can't do a lot to cool it down. I can cool the coolant down, and we're bringing the coolant gauge right back down again, but yeah, I don't know, it doesn't have a problem as such, it's just the conditions of the day, basically. Didn't have this issue with Dumpit the other day, I know. It varies from car to car. I can't remember if Dumpit's got the bigger radiator. I got a feeling it might. It's not here. The guy who, Dumpit is being driven by the guy who owns this at the moment, so I don't know where Dumpit is, but yeah. So I don't think it's an issue with the car as such. The first run I saw it and thought, oh God, is there something wrong with the car? No, I don't think so. I think it's probably going to hit about the 78 region when it's happy. But I noticed something under here. Did you notice it? Did you watch the Dumpit video? It has a Dumpit pipe. Now on Dumpit, removing that gained a couple of horses. I mean, scientifically speaking, it didn't, because we didn't do controlled condition tests, but it effectively gained like a horsepower and a half, something like that. And Dumpit is only a 1.1. This is a bigger capacity engine, yet it has the same size pipe. So that's going to be strangling this engine more than Dumpit was being strangled. So should we try removing this? Yes, we should. Yes, we should try removing that. I removed this on my Saxo. and it made whoop noises. So that's what I'm going to try. Oh, it's not tight anyway. That's a good start. And I'm going to have to... What can I do it without removing that bolt? No! Damn it. Dumpit's bolt's missing. Let's try again. Bonnet open like it was for Dumpit, just in case. Let's see if the Dumpit pipe made a difference. Yes, it did. 79.1. And the kink got ironed out. It's too hot for it. The engine is just a bit too hot. I think, were the engines... I mean, obviously you could argue and say, well, if the temperature was lower, it would make more power. Well, no, it wouldn't, because we're going on the corrected figure, which takes this into account. But if the engine was a bit cooler, this graph would be smoother. Now, whether that means well, it's possible the coolant temp sensor for the engine is maybe slightly out. My AFR isn't connected, annoyingly. If my AFR meter was working, I'd be able to see if it was actually fueling properly or not, but I think it is. I think this is heat that's causing that. So yeah, that made a big difference. So that red one there is the first run it did. And that's just by letting it cool down. It was just way too hot. It was hot on the gauge, to be fair. The coolant was hot. So the first run it did 74, possibly too hot. Slightly cooler, 79.1. I don't think it will go into the 80s. It's annoying, but I don't think it will. It has beaten Bella. So we need to look at that. This BX actually has the same kind of engine, but it's carburetor fed. But yes, it has beaten Bella the hub nut Berlingo. We do need to take stock of that, because that should have 90 horsepower, and this Saxo should have 75. But the Saxo's produced 79, and Bella only produced 77. Bella should be like up here, but it's not, because it's, well, because hub nut, I suppose. Am I going to stop doing these jokes? No, I don't think so. Right, there we go. 79 horsepower for the Brick and Mix on Instagram, Saxo FURIO. So it puts it above Bella, importantly. It's a strange set of affairs when a car produces 4 horsepower more than it's supposed to, but you leave feeling slightly dejected. I thought it would have got 85, but if it had got 85, it wouldn't have gone any higher than that. That is where it would have ended up. So, yeah, I don't know if Little Kitch would be happy or not. Right, the important thing is it's beating hub nut, so I'm going home.